There are moments in life when it feels like everything is falling apart, when it seems like the ground beneath you is shaking and the path ahead is filled with nothing but uncertainty. It's in those moments that you may wonder if God has forgotten about you or if he simply left you to navigate life on your own. But I want to remind you today that there is a divine setup in progress, one that is greater than you could ever imagine. It's not the end of your story, it's just the beginning of a brand new chapter. God is setting you up for a big blessing. The setbacks, the disappointments, the heartaches, all of those things have a purpose. They are not signs of failure. They are stepping stones that are positioning you for something far greater. I know it's hard to see in the moment, especially when you're facing challenges that seem insurmountable, but I need you to hear this with your heart. God has not brought you this far to leave you stranded. Every setback, every delay, and every hardship is part of the grand design that he is working on for your life. In fact, I would argue that your greatest blessings are often hidden behind your deepest struggles. You may feel like you've been walking through fire, but what you don't realize is that the fire has been refining you, purifying you, and preparing you for something extraordinary. Don't get discouraged by the heat of the moment. Don't give up when the pressure is at its highest. It's in those very moments that God is shaping you, molding you, and preparing you to carry the weight of the blessing that is on the way. Now, I know some of you are wondering how you're going to make it through this. You've been praying, you've been fasting, you've been seeking answers, but it feels like everything around you is falling apart. It feels like no matter what you do, things just aren't working out. But I want you to understand that this is not a sign of God's absence. On the contrary, this is a sign of his presence. God works in mysterious ways, and sometimes his greatest blessings come when we least expect them. Think about Joseph for a moment. Joseph's life is a perfect example of how God sets us up for blessings in ways that we might never understand. Here was a young man who had been given a dream by God, a dream that seemed impossible. His brothers were jealous of him, and they sold him into slavery. From there, he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, Joseph's life seemed like a series of misfortune. But what Joseph didn't know was that every hardship, every moment of pain was a step closer to his divine appointment. God had a plan for Joseph. And it didn't matter how many obstacles he faced. It didn't matter how many times he was knocked down. Joseph was being prepared for something bigger. When the time was right, Joseph was elevated to a position of power and influence, and he was able to save nations from famine. But that didn't happen overnight. It took years of struggle, years of being overlooked, years of wondering if God had forgotten him. But all of that was part of the divine setup. Your life is no different. You may be going through struggles, you may be facing difficulties that seem unfair, but God is working behind the scenes to set you up for a blessing that will blow your mind. You may not see it yet, but trust me, the best is yet to come. God is always at work, even when it feels like nothing is happening. There is a purpose in every delay, a lesson in every hardship, and a blessing in every season of waiting. Waiting is not a sign of God's absence. It's a sign that he is preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. You may feel like you're in the middle of a storm right now, but I want to remind you that storms don't last forever. They are temporary, and when they pass, they leave behind a calm and clear sky. Your storm will pass. Your season of struggle will end. And when it does, you will be positioned for the biggest blessing of your life. One of the most important things to remember during this time is that God's timing is perfect. It's easy to become impatient when things aren't happening as quickly as we'd like, but we must trust that God knows exactly when the right time is. His timing is never early and it's never late. It's always right on time. You might not see it now, but the timing of your breakthrough is coming, and when it does, it will be so much greater than anything you could have planned for yourself. In fact, I believe that God is about to release a blessing in your life that you never saw coming. It may not look like what you imagined, and it may not come in the way you thought it would, but it will be exactly. You see, God's blessings don't always look like what we expect. We might think we need one thing, but God knows exactly what we need. He knows the desires of our hearts, and He knows the plans He has for us. And those plans are always bigger, always better, and always more fulfilling than anything we could have dreamed up on our own. So, if you're in the middle of a struggle right now, I want you to hold on. Don't give up. Don't lose faith. God is setting you up for something big, something that will surpass your wildest dreams. This season of waiting is not a waste, it's preparation. You're being prepared for the blessing that is coming your way. Think about a seed that is planted in the ground. It doesn't grow overnight. It has to go through a process. First, the seed is buried, then it begins to germinate, and finally it starts to sprout. But all of that happens in the dark, in the hidden places where no one can see it. And just like that seed, God is working in the hidden places of your life. He is preparing you for something great. You might not see it now, but I promise you, your time is coming. God's plans for you are bigger than any obstacle you're facing. His purpose for your life is greater than any setback or disappointment. And when the time is right, He will reveal the blessing that He's been setting you up for all along. It may not come the way you expect, and it may not come when you expect, but it will come. And when it does, it will be worth every moment of waiting, every tear that you've cried, every sleepless night, and every prayer that you've whispered in the dark. So if you're feeling discouraged today, I want to encourage you to keep going. Keep believing. Keep trusting. God is working on your behalf. He is positioning you for something greater. Your blessing is on the way, and when it comes, it will be so much bigger than you ever imagined. God is setting you up for a big blessing, and you are about to see the manifestation of His promises in your life. Hold on, because your breakthrough is coming. The best is yet to come. Every hardship and setback you face is not a sign of God's absence, but a step in the process of preparing you for a blessing. Just as a seed must go through a process of being buried and growing in the dark, your current struggles are refining and positioning you for something greater. God's timing is always right, even when things don't seem to be moving as fast as you'd like. While waiting might feel like a delay, it's actually a season of preparation. When the time is right, God's blessing will come in a way that exceeds your expectations. The best blessings often come in unexpected ways. You may not see the full picture now, but trust that God is working behind the scenes. His plans for your life are bigger and better than anything you could have imagined. And when your breakthrough arrives, it will be worth every moment of waiting and struggle. There are times in life when we find ourselves walking through dark valleys, facing challenges and enduring hardships that seem insurmountable. We question why we must go through these struggles, why things never seem to go as planned, and why it feels as though we are being buried under the weight of our circumstances. But in these moments, we must remember that what appears to be a setback is often a setup for something greater. The struggles we face are not meaningless. They are part of a divine preparation process that God uses to mold us, refine us, and position us for a blessing beyond our understanding. Think of a diamond formed deep within the earth. It begins as a piece of carbon, a seemingly ordinary substance, but over time, through intense pressure and heat, it is transformed into something precious, something of great value. The diamond does not arrive at its brilliance without undergoing a process of transformation. In the same way, the struggles we face serve as the pressure and heat that shape us into who we are meant to be. We may feel like we are being pressed down, but it is in this pressing that we are being refined for our divine purpose. There is a beauty in struggle, though it may not always feel that way in the moment. When you are going through difficult times, it often feels like you're walking through fire, with each step burning a little bit more. But what you might not see is that God is using that very fire to refine you, to purify you, and to prepare you for the blessing that awaits on the other side. Just as gold is purified in the fire, your character, faith, and perseverance are being tested and strengthened in the furnace of adversity. It's easy to give up when it feels like the heat is too much to bear. But you must trust that God is in control, and He knows exactly what He is doing. He is shaping you into something more valuable, more resilient, and more capable of handling the blessings He has in store for you. The struggles you face now may feel overwhelming, and you might question if you will ever make it through. But remember, you are not alone. God is with you every step of the way, guiding you, strengthening you, and holding you up when you feel like you can't stand on your own. It's easy to look at someone else's life and think they have it all together, but you don't see the battles they've fought or the struggles they've overcome. Everyone goes through challenges, and it's often the struggles that shape us into the people we are meant to become. When you look back on your life, you will realize that the times you grew the most were not the easy times, but the difficult ones. The moments when you felt like giving up, but kept pressing forward anyway. In fact, it's in the moments of hardship that you are often forced to rely on God more than ever before. When everything is going well, it's easy to forget about God's role in our lives. We can become complacent and start to think that we have everything under control. But when things fall apart, when everything seems to be going wrong, we are reminded that we are not in control. It's in these moments that we learn to depend on God more fully, to trust in His plan, and to rely on His strength. Your struggles are not just random events. They are part of a divine plan, one that is leading you to a place of greater blessing and purpose. Take a moment to reflect on your past struggles. Think about the times when you thought you couldn't go any further, when you thought that God had forgotten you. Now think about how those struggles shaped you. Maybe they taught you patience, humility, or perseverance. Maybe they deepened your faith and helped you discover a strength within yourself that you never knew existed. The lessons learned through struggle are invaluable. It's not always the easy times that teach us the most. It's the difficult times, the times when we are stretched and tested beyond our limits, that help us grow the most. The beauty of divine preparation is that God does not waste any of our experiences, whether good or bad. Every trial, every heartbreak, every disappointment, and every struggle is being used by God to shape us into who He created us to be. We may not understand it at the time, but looking back, we can see how each part of the journey played a role in preparing us for what was to come. The struggles you face today are not the end of your story. They are just a part of the journey that is leading you to something greater. God is using these experiences to prepare you for the blessing He has already ordained for your life. When you are in the midst of struggle, it's easy to feel like everything is falling apart, but God is actually putting everything into place. He is orchestrating every detail of your life to bring you to a place of greater purpose and fulfillment. The difficulties you are facing now may be laying the foundation for your future success, joy, and peace. You may not see it yet, but trust that God is working behind the scenes, aligning everything according to His perfect plan. It's in these moments of struggle that you are being positioned for greatness, even though it may not feel like it. The struggle is not the end. It's just the beginning of something beautiful. You may feel like you're being buried under the weight of your circumstances, but what you don't realize is that God is planting you for something greater. Just as a seed must be buried in the ground before it can sprout and grow into something beautiful, your struggles are preparing you for a breakthrough. You are being buried in order to be raised up to a new level of glory, a new level of blessing, and a new level of purpose. Sometimes we want to bypass the struggle and go straight to the blessing, but without the process, we would not be ready for what God has prepared for us. The struggles we face are necessary to prepare us for the weight of the blessing. If we try to rush the process, we may not be able to handle the very thing we've been praying for. God knows exactly what we need and when we need it. He knows that the blessings He has for us are so great that we must be prepared to receive them. The process of preparation may be uncomfortable, but it is necessary for us to grow and mature so that we can handle the blessing when it comes. As you walk through your struggles, remember that God is not only with you in the good times, but also in the bad. He is walking alongside you, guiding you, and helping you grow through every challenge you face. Your struggles are not in vain. They are shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for the incredible things that are ahead. Trust in the process and know that God is working all things together for your good. The struggles you face today are preparing you for the blessings of tomorrow. And when the time is right, you will see how every part of your journey was part of God's divine plan for your life. Trusting in God's perfect timing can be one of the most challenging yet powerful aspects of our spiritual walk. In a world that thrives on instant gratification and immediate results, waiting on God can often feel unnatural. We live in a society that teaches us to go after what we want now, to seize opportunities as they come, and to avoid delay at all costs. But God's timing is different, and while we may not always understand it, there is great peace and wisdom in learning to trust in it. There are times when we ask God for something, and the answer doesn't come right away. We pray, we hope, and we believe, but the breakthrough seems to be delayed. It is in these moments of waiting, when the clock seems to tick slower and the outcome feels uncertain, that we are called to trust not in our own understanding, but in the faithfulness of God. Trusting in God's perfect timing is about letting go of our need to control the outcome and allowing Him to work in the way He knows is best for us. When we look at the Bible, we see countless examples of people who had to trust God's timing, sometimes for years before they saw the fulfillment of His promises. Abraham and Sarah, for instance, waited for decades before God finally fulfilled His promise of a son. They were in their old age, long past the natural time to have children. Yet God's timing was perfect. Their faith was tested in the waiting, but when Isaac was born, it was a reminder that God's promises do not fail, even when they seem impossible by human standards. It's easy to become impatient when we don't see immediate results, and the temptation to take matters into our own hands is strong. Yet God's perfect timing is not about us doing things in our own strength or following a timeline we have created. It's about learning to wait on God's best for us. We can spend so much time trying to push things into motion or make things happen on our own, only to find that our own efforts often lead to frustration or disappointment. But when we learn to trust in God's timing, we open ourselves up to a peace that surpasses our understanding and a blessing that exceeds what we could ever have imagined. The reality is that God sees the bigger picture while we are often limited by what we can see in the present moment. We can't see the future, we don't know the next step, and we don't know what lies ahead, but God does. He sees the full scope of our lives, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And His timing is always perfect because He is orchestrating every detail of our lives according to His will. While we may feel that we are being delayed or that things are moving too slowly, God is not in a rush. He knows exactly what we need and when we need it. Our waiting is not wasted. It is a time for God to prepare us for what's ahead. There is often a deeper work being done during the waiting seasons of our lives. God uses the time of waiting to strengthen our faith, to refine our character, and to teach us patience. When we're in a season of waiting, it's easy to become discouraged and wonder if God has forgotten us or if He's not answering our prayers. But in reality, the waiting process is an opportunity for us to grow. It's in the waiting that we learn to depend on God more fully, to trust His ways even when we don't understand them, and to embrace His timing without trying to rush ahead. The waiting period is a season of preparation, a season where God is equipping us for what lies ahead. We also have to remember that God's timing is not just about the right moment for us, but also about the right moment for others. Sometimes, the reason for the delay is because God is working in the lives of other people, setting the stage for us to be in the right place at the right time. We may not see it now, But God is aligning the circumstances, opening doors, and positioning people so that when His timing is perfect, everything will fall into place. We may only see a small piece of the puzzle, but God sees the entire picture. He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail to ensure that the timing of our breakthrough will be just right. One of the hardest aspects of trusting in God's perfect timing is learning to release control. It's natural to want to make things happen on our own, to push for what we want and to take matters into our own hands. But trusting in God's timing requires surrender. It's about saying, God, I trust that you know what's best for me. I trust that your timing is perfect even when I don't understand it. I will wait on you and I will trust that you will make all things beautiful in your time. Surrendering to God's timing doesn't mean we stop praying, stop hoping, or stop working toward our goals. It means that we stop trying to manipulate the situation or force things to happen. It means we release our need for control and place our trust fully in God. While it's true that waiting can be difficult, it is also a time of great blessing. When we wait on God, we are reminded of His faithfulness. Waiting allows us to see how God has been working in our lives all along, even in ways we might not have noticed before. Waiting allows us to experience His peace, His provision, and His love in deeper ways. And when the time comes for the answer to our prayer, when the breakthrough arrives, it will be even more precious because we've had the opportunity to grow in faith and trust throughout the waiting period. We can also take comfort in the fact that God's delays are not denials. Just because something hasn't happened yet does not mean that God is saying no. It simply means that He is waiting for the perfect time to bring His plan to fruition. We may not know why the timing is as it is, but we can trust that God is always working on our behalf. He knows the desires of our hearts, and He is faithful to fulfill His promises. His delays are not a sign of failure or rejection. They are an opportunity for us to grow in trust and to develop a deeper reliance on Him. Ultimately, trusting in God's perfect timing is an act of faith. It's trusting that God knows the right time, the right place, and the right way. It's about surrendering our timeline to Him and believing that His plan is greater than our own. When we trust in His timing, we open ourselves up to a peace that transcends our understanding. We no longer have to rush, worry, or panic about the future. We can rest in the knowledge that God is in control and that He is always working for our good. His timing may not always match our expectations, but it is always perfect. When we learn to trust in His timing, we can experience a joy and a peace that comes from knowing that we are walking in the rhythm of God's perfect plan for our lives. There are times in life when we look around and wonder if our dreams will ever come to fruition. We face moments of doubt, frustration, and even despair, wondering if the blessings we've prayed for and hoped for will ever materialize. It's easy to become discouraged when we don't see immediate results, when it seems like our efforts are going unnoticed or unappreciated, or when things feel stagnant as though we are stuck in a season of waiting with no clear end in sight. But the truth is that God's blessings often work in ways that we cannot immediately see or understand. The most powerful blessings are often unseen, working behind the scenes in ways that we cannot yet perceive, but they are real and they are on their way. Unseen blessings are not just random acts of good fortune. They are the manifestations of God's promises, His timing, and His plans for our lives. The reality is that many of the blessings we desire are already in motion, even if we can't see them yet. God works in mysterious ways, and just because we don't have tangible evidence right now doesn't mean that He isn't at work. In fact, often the greatest blessings are those that are being prepared in the unseen, the ones that take time to come to fruition, and the ones that require patience, faith, and trust. It's in these waiting seasons that God is setting the stage for something far greater than we could have imagined. We may not see the doors that are being opened behind the scenes, the people that are being positioned to help us, or the divine connections that are being made, but God is orchestrating every detail of our lives with intentionality. The blessings that we are waiting for might not be ready to appear in the form we expect, but they are being prepared in ways that will exceed our expectations. These blessings may come in forms we cannot even anticipate, perhaps in a new opportunity, a relationship, or even a shift in perspective that brings clarity to our path. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph went through a series of painful and discouraging experiences that seemed like setbacks. He was sold by his brothers, falsely accused, and thrown into prison, all while holding on to a dream he had received from God. For years, his life appeared to be in a constant state of difficulty, and there was no clear indication that his situation would ever change. But little did he know, while he was enduring hardship, God was at work behind the scenes, orchestrating the events that would one day elevate him to a position of great influence. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that even when we don't see it, God is always working on our behalf. What appeared to be a series of setbacks was actually part of God's divine plan to bring about a blessing far greater than Joseph could have ever imagined. Similarly, in our own lives, there are often periods where it feels like we are stuck, where it seems like things aren't progressing the way we had hoped. But God's timing is perfect, and his plans for us are always greater than what we can see in the moment. It's during these times when we feel like we're walking in the dark that we must learn to trust that God is working behind the scenes. Our unseen blessings are being formed and nurtured in the hidden places, even when we don't know it. One of the most important things to remember during these waiting seasons is that God's blessings are not limited by our circumstances. Sometimes we may look at our current situation and think that there's no way out, that the odds are stacked against us, or that the challenges we face are too great. But God has a way of bringing blessings from the most unlikely places. The Bible tells us that God can make a way where there seems to be no way. What we see as an obstacle, God sees as an opportunity for his power to be revealed. The unseen blessings that are waiting for us are not contingent upon what we see in the natural realm. They are based on God's ability to move in the supernatural. It's also essential to realize that some of the blessings we are waiting for are the result of seeds we have sown in the past. Sometimes we are unaware of the impact our actions, prayers, or acts of kindness have made in the lives of others or in the spiritual realm. God is faithful to honor the seeds we plant, even when we don't see the fruit right away. Just as a farmer plants seeds in the soil and waits for them to grow, we too must trust that the seeds of faith, love, and good deeds we've sown will eventually bear fruit. Our unseen blessings may be the result of years of prayer, hard work, and obedience. And while we may not see immediate results, we can trust that God is faithful to bring them to harvest at the right time. Moreover, the unseen blessings in our lives often come with a level of preparation that we cannot fully comprehend. Sometimes we may think we are ready for something, but God knows that there is still work to be done within us. Perhaps we need more character development, more patience, or a deeper understanding of his will for our lives before we can truly receive and steward the blessings he has for us. These unseen blessings are not just about the material things we might desire, but about our spiritual and emotional growth. God is shaping us to be the people who are able to handle the blessings he is about to release. It's not just about receiving something good, it's about becoming the kind of person who can handle the responsibility and joy that comes with that blessing. We must also understand that sometimes God's unseen blessings are not just about what we receive, but about who we become in the process. There may be moments in life when the blessings we long for seem distant and we wonder if they will ever come to pass. But in the waiting, we are being refined. Our faith is being tested, our hearts are being purified, and our trust in God is deepening. These blessings may not be physical or material at all, but they are the internal changes and growth that come as a result of our relationship with God and his faithfulness. When the unseen blessings do arrive, they are often far more than we ever imagined. not just in what they bring, but in how they transform us as individuals. In our impatience, it is easy to overlook the fact that these unseen blessings are not just for us. Often the blessings we are waiting for are meant to have a ripple effect on the people around us. Just as Joseph's promotion ultimately saved many people from famine, the blessings in our lives may not just be for our benefit, but for the benefit of others as well. We may be positioned to bless our families, communities, or even nations, and the timing of our blessing is intricately connected to the timing of others. The unseen blessings that God is preparing for us may be part of a larger plan, one that involves the lives and hearts of those around us. Our waiting may be part of God's bigger plan to bring his love, healing, and restoration to a world that desperately needs it. In the end, the unseen blessings that await us are not just about what we can see or touch in the natural world, but about the deeper, more meaningful things that God is working out in our hearts and lives. Whether they come as answers to prayer, opportunities we never expected, or personal growth that prepares us for what's ahead, we can rest assured that God is working behind the scenes, aligning everything perfectly. The greatest blessings are often those that we cannot yet see, but we can trust that they are on their way, and when they come, they will be far greater than we could ever have imagined. The best is yet to come.